If there's anybody on the front line these days, it would be the caregiver. So much stress, they're giving so much. And when they get exhausted and they have no more energy left to draw from, it may seem, where do they go to refill their cup and have more to abundantly give to those they're caring for? Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Center of Calmness. I'm super blessed to be here this evening with James Kwainui, not in Hawaii at this time, but from Hawaii. So James, welcome.
Thank you, DK. Thank you for having me today.
Thanks so much for joining us. I wonder if we could just maybe cover a quick point at the beginning, which is very unique for yourself and your background, that you actually come from a long line of Hawaiian healers. I wonder if we just touch on that for just a moment.
Sure. My family goes back on the island of Hawaii, which people refer to as a big island, for over 20 generations. And they were the healers, and some people would say that we understood energy, so they understood energy in a way that some of us in modern life have no connection to. And I felt it in my life the older I got, but it wasn't until very recently being the last 20 years, where I allowed that energy to come through and really start to live and embody that. And in some ways that DK and I were talking about, listening to the voices of my ancestors who helped me talk to and work with the people that are in front of me.
That is super cool, and I've never heard anybody that's been on the Center of Calmness before talk about having access to so many generations back. Now, when we talk about multi-generational ancestry and having access to all of that collective wisdom, are you basically saying that a lot of the folks in your family line generations back were actually in the healing arts, working with energy directly, and doing essentially what you do?
Yes, and the way that I look at what I do now is I taking the energy or the understanding and the wisdom that my ancestors would have had, and shifting it or bringing it into a space where I can share it with a modern audience, because what we did or what my ancestors may have done may have a different understanding or a different context in their time. And yet in this space that I'm in is how can I take, and I call that as how do I take that ancient wisdom and I bring it into modern life to share that information and that wisdom with people, which is what I do now.
That is super exciting, and I look forward to, especially the folks that might want to reach out to you. We shared a story of such depth just before getting on here live, that just to let everyone know out there is a lot behind what James is doing and the background that he's bringing, and if you will, the techniques and the skill sets, and quite frankly the energy that James brings to every healing opportunity. It's precious and quite special. So I encourage everyone to reach out to James and experience that for themselves, for yourselves. Now, actually, what brought us together was actually Hamali Vura and her compilation book, Sacred Death. I wonder if maybe, James, you might just touch on how you got associated with that project and the subject that you ended up focusing on with Hamali in that book.
I met Hamali towards the end of last year. We were on a project together, and we just sat and started talking to each other. And when she came up with the idea of the book for Sacred Death, she reached out to me at the beginning of the year, and she said, "I'm going to do a project. Why don't you come in, and do you want to be a part of the project?" And I jumped on it because, again, listening to my ancestors, they said, "Do this. This is important." And I said, "Okay." And so the chapter I wrote is called Filling Your Empty Cup. And what I wanted to focus on, because I had personal experience of being a caregiver myself, is the place where we overgive, the place where we give to the point of exhaustion, the place that we give to the point of mental and emotional fatigue and breakdown. And I watched myself do that for the various reasons that we all have in the stories that we carry in our lives. Yet the transition of that, as I start to understand it, and this is one of the biggest pieces I think that was inside of that, is I had to learn how to ask for help. which is
Aha.
which is something that we don't have a very strong skill set in. When we create separation, or when I think that I'm separate, and when I think that I have to figure things out for myself, and when I think that I don't have the support that I need, or want or need, then it makes it more challenging for us to reach out for help. And it was one of the points that I brought out in the chapter that I wrote.
Definitely. Isn't it interesting? And Himali actually and I have some conversations at times about the concept of duality, right? And I see that concept coming out here. And what I'm amazed by is how practical that concept really is. Oh, and by the way, Himali is actually with us tonight.
Oh,
Hello,
yay.
Himali.
Hi, Amali.
Good to
Thank
see you.
you for connecting us.
Thanks for this opportunity that actually she brought together. For a while here, I've only been running a Center of Calmness show maybe once a month, and Hamali actually was with me maybe 2 months ago or so, and then things came around again as they sometimes do with the
Right.
launch of Sacred Death, which is coming up, the book that Hamali is compiling, and then she said, "Well, hey, why don't we get some of the authors here on Center of Calmness?" I'm like, "Well, sounds great." So here we are now, exploring the kind of the quandary of the caregiver, right? So the caregiver is somebody who's very well suited and also energetically focused to give, if you will, almost more energy than they take in, perhaps, to really help that person that's under their care, right?
We are, as human beings, I think, in some ways overgivers, because we are so connected to that understanding of wanting to be in community, and to wanting to be of service. I think at the base of a lot of humanity is this idea, or this pull of being in service and being in community. And so when somebody reaches out to us for help, there's in some ways always going to be that pull to want to be there for them. It's when that gets out of balance is when we really have to start looking at. I asked a lot of questions in my chapter, because I said, so what is the meaning or the reason why you're overgiving? Is because there's a sense of guilt inside of that? Is there a sense of obligation, or something that says that I need to do this, or is it because I want the affirmation and the confirmation of how amazing I am, right? So there are all these subtle things that are behind that we don't actually pay attention to, because in our minds we're giving because we want to help. And that may be a primary source, or one of the sources, but it may not be the exact one.
That's so interesting. I wonder, as you've worked with, I'm sure you worked with many caregivers since you may have entered, and I maybe you're still a caregiver now. I'm not sure, but once you got out of that as your primary phase, perhaps, I wonder what you've found as you've met with individual caregivers and perhaps many caregivers. What do you find their desire to overgive comes from?
Well, there's a similar angle, and I'll explain this. Most of the people that I work with are other healing practitioners.
Yeah.
And so I see this understanding, or I see this energy of overgiving in that genre as well. So it's, in some ways, it's caregiving, just a little bit different kind of caregiving, right? I can only speak mostly from my experience, and maybe from the experiences of the people that I work with. But my primary reason for being a caregiver was in my childhood, having an abusive stepfather, and being physically and emotionally traumatized. And there was this constant reaffirming of how not good and how bad I was, and how nobody would love me. And so as I grew up, I overcompensated for that by reaching out. And we were talking before the show, where my nickname used to be Mr. Aloha, because I would meet people and I would literally say to them, I'm going to make you love me.
Wow, direct, huh?
I, I would, and it was, and I used to laugh because I thought it was a joke, but it wasn't a joke. And so what we tend to do is we tend to make ourselves indispensable. It's a really important point, right?
Yes, absolutely. And once we're
So
in that mode, then if we need to escape for a moment, right, and recharge, can't do it because you're indispensable.
well, because what I've done, and I didn't realize this for a really long time, and I never talked about this in the book, but this is also valid. I created codependent relationships,
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that yeah,
right?
because you put out that connection that you want to make, and then when the person reciprocates, it forms the bond.
It forms the bond, and so yeah, I'm attracting all these people that need help because I want to help, right? And then all of a sudden, I realize that I'm being inundated by these people, but I don't know what to do. And I've created this codependent relationship that says that I'm here to help, and they're here to take my energy or use my energy however they need to. And,
Right.
and then once that bond or that relationship is made, sometimes I don't know how to break it because then guilt comes in because the guilt goes, oh my God, if I tell them no, they're going to stop loving me
So,
because I
and that
feel
actually goes beyond the responsibility and even the sensitivity of the caregiver, right? Because it's
it
not that
does.
you see a need for care; it's that you've got this underlying, maybe guilt complex and other, something that's more from within that's coming out and strengthening that bond even more.
And so it's really important to be able to be very clear about what my motivation is for being a caregiver, right?
Absolutely, that's huge. Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
when you work with other caregivers, do you find that they have similar underlying concerns that are both driving their desire to provide care as well as to form these similar bonds and relationships?
Maybe not to the extreme of creating codependent relationships, but there is a place where there is this driver. And I said, as human beings, we want to be in service, right? The question or the concern would be is how do we create that service in a balanced way? Because that's where it falls out of balance. And when it falls out of balance, then I start to go, wow, I should exercise today, but Jane really needs me to be there for her, so I'm not going to exercise. I'm just going to get there early. And gosh, I'm really tired and I should go home, but Jane really needs me and I need to be around for her, so I will stay here. And then I will go home and I'd be exhausted. And we do that over time, and it has this detrimental and negative effect that after a while it hits us, and then we literally fall apart.
Right. And then, of course, there's really not any opportunity to provide any more care, so that you actually lose your primary function at that point.
Exactly. And then the whole piece of self-worth shows up because, oh no, I can't do the thing that I love to do. What good am I as a person? I mean, there are so many layers inside of this to look at that it's good to become aware of the layers.
Absolutely right. And once with awareness and knowledge comes the ability to address each one, right? That self-worth one is particularly dangerous, right? Because that could be at the root of several actually medical problems, would you say?
One of the things that I notice is that, so we again in this is my humble opinion, all pain is emotional. And so wherever we are with illness or disease, or if we're helping somebody else or even for ourselves, can I see the emotion that is the driver for the reasons that and the choices that I make in my life, right? And become really honest, and not in a way where I give myself a hard time or I start to self-deprecate, right? Not in that way at all. It's just to become aware so that I am clear about why I'm doing the things that I do. And there's a place where it is, if I'm looking for love outside of me, that means that there's a lack of self-love inside. And that might be a really good place to start because when I am clear and I'm strong and I'm inside of myself and there is a level of self-love that I am able to accept and hold on to for myself, it gives me the opportunity then to share that with other people. It's because it's not out of balance.
Right. And because it is balanced and it's coming from within, that's actually a true energy source. That when you give of that, right, then you're not really depleting yourself, correct?
Exactly. And that comes into other aspects of this because what is conditional love and what is unconditional love? And conditional love is giving because I need to receive in return, right?
Right.
So again, the many layers that look inside of the reasons that we care give, right? And the reasons that we make ourselves available for that. Unconditional love means that there is such a filling inside of me. There's such an understanding of my self-worth and my value that I can share without needing anything in return, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Instead of giving and having to hear, "Oh my God, James, you're such an amazing person. Thank you so much for helping me."
Right. Yeah. And it is probably hard not to attach to that to some extent, right? Because you
Yeah,
do
yeah,
want it. That's validation that you
yeah.
provided this tremendous service and a powerful service to the person under your care. But wow, the ability to have that come in and not have it connect you
I,
with
I,
bond.
I,
So
I,
important.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I lived off of that
Yeah.
for years, for years. Yeah. Until I got to the point where I didn't have anything to give anymore. And that's what happened when I was taking care of the people that I talked about in the story. And I had to reach out for help because there was nothing else that I could do.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. So you basically reach the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, or choose whichever at the end of the rope, whichever analogy you prefer, right?
Whichever.
Now, and of course, we don't want to reveal your entire chapter's worth of information here, but if I might ask, where did you reach out to get that help and support?
The just it was a family that the sisters that were taking care of their mother and their father, and I was in a relationship with one of the sisters, and so she and I took on the mantle of taking care of the parents, and we got to the point where we were depleted, and we literally had to get asked for help with the other members of the family. So in this way, it was inside the family that we reached out for help. If I'm a professional caregiver, then where is it that I go to reach for help? How do I find that place? And that's a really good question, because can I ask inside of the space of maybe where I work with my other coworkers, or is there a place where I have to reach outside of that to find somebody that maybe not is not a part of my world to help me come to terms or understand what I'm doing and to be able to make corrections, right? And really, this is really what we're talking about. We're talking about making course corrections. So we go off course, and can we have somebody that may have a different perspective that brings us back on course again?
Absolutely. And
Right?
actually, I think as we were discussing before we started the show tonight, there is an energetic component, isn't there? Where if you've reached a point where your energy is seriously depleted due to being out of balance and giving up those regenerative activities, you could actually have an empty tank. And since you have this extensive background with the multi generational Hawaiian healing art, do you, from that perspective, if you either have an empty tank yourself or you find someone who's got one, what how would you set that person on the right path to recovery and re-energizing so that they actually have something to give?
The first answer that I would give you is that we have to start looking at the boundaries that we have or do not have energetically. When we are porous and we are open, we have a tendency to just let our energy literally leak out of us. And so if there's no place where I can contain my field of energy, or if I can maintain my own field of energy, then I'm always going to be on the negative side of that giving and receiving,
Right.
right? And so a lot of the times when people come to me for help, one of the first things I look at is I look at what are your, and I call them protocols for energetic boundaries. What are your protocols? How do you maintain your energetic field? What do you do, or do you have any tools to strengthen that field around you? And that's the starting point, right? And
Gotcha.
and and I had a conversation with somebody earlier today, and this is one of those places where we start to understand the difference, or the difference between sympathy and empathy, right? Sympathy is means I feel your pain. That's what you're saying is, I feel what you're going through. Empathy then is, I understand what you're going
And it's pretty
through.
clear what side of that we want to be on, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
because
because
sympathy draws us in. We are actually expending energy to join the experience that the person who needs care is having, right?
right. And I look at it this way because when we have empathy and I can understand that person, and it's not that I'm better or more important or anything else like that, but from the place of empathy and understanding what this person is going through, there's a level of understanding where they've come from, maybe some of the decisions that they've made and why they are in that position, which then gives me a different perspective on maybe how to support them in wanting to shift. If I'm lost inside of the story, because what I'm doing, and this is really what the mind does, here is this person, they're telling me about their life. I'm wanting to connect with them and bond with them in such a way that on an unconscious level, what my brain is doing is it's searching through my data, my extensive database, to find a similar experience so I can feel what they're feeling. And as soon as that happens, then I'm in the same space as they are. And I lose the sense of perspective or the sense of understanding so that I can be supportive.
Interesting. So, I mean, that sounds like a type of sympathy but maybe that doesn't involve your energy so much as the energy of the memory that you're accessing, or how does that work exactly?
Well, my opinion is that most relationships are built on pain. And so we need that pain because that is the common denominator. That is what binds us and connects us, is that pain. And because most of us have experienced some kind of pain or trauma or negativity in the world, it makes it easy for us to connect with other people, right? And so now, how can I look at that and realize I've had a similar experience in this moment as I'm listening to this person? It doesn't necessarily mean I have to access it. It just means that I understand what they're going through.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So you're bringing the information, but it's remaining information, and you don't have to inhabit it, uh,
Right.
and step into the mode of what even that situation that you're accessing from the past may have been.
It just says, oh, I understand because I've been there before. It
I
doesn't
got
mean that I bring that in and I go, yeah, that really happened to me. And this is what they did to me when this happened to me. And then all of a sudden I'm locked into the story.
right. Right. I understand. Okay. Perfect. Well,
So
and that, yeah,
does that make sense?
it really does, yeah. So that's powerful from a couple different levels. First, that you can actually, if you will, almost pull the experience into the present situation, which is a lot of folks. I mean, I mean, to have access to such an extensive library of those experiences is quite special. But then to be able to pull that in and not be caught by it is another powerful attribute of what I hear you saying here.
But we all have those experiences. That makes up the human that we are, right? And it's how we learn to bring those memories forward and to acknowledge them and use them or see them in the light that they are so that it helps me move forward. I don't want to get caught in the stories that says I'm no good. I want to know that I've been there in the past, and when that trigger comes, when that behavior shows up, I can see it enough so that I can go, oh, wait a minute, it's happening again. Do I want to fall into that story, or do I want to realize that it's trying to draw me in? And in this moment, I have an opportunity to make a different choice.
Right, absolutely right. So it's the awareness as well of feeling the pull, if you will, and the energetic shifts or the vibrations that are in play at the moment.
But realizing that I have the power to make the choice in that moment, and it's not running unconsciously anymore.
Right, right. Fully aware and bringing it to the conscious level, so you get to make the call and set the direction of how the meeting, the visit, the interaction, or the experience is going to go. That's awesome.
We're taking it out of a place that is automated and we're bringing it back literally into the frontal cortex so that we can actually have logic and we can see it and then go, wait a minute, I have a choice in how I move forward instead of moving forward automatically.
Right. So huge, right? And also then paying the energetic cost of that automatic
Exactly.
movement, right? Now,
Exactly.
before we move too far away from the concept or the subject of energy and that as part of the caregiving experience and the risk of getting depleted, we did have a question that came in from Ryan Arnold here as to, do you have any daily routines, James, that you're willing to share? My guess is that you have an extensive set of routines for this, to keep and maintain a healthy energy level. I wonder if you might share something that's accessible to folks in the audience that might not have specialized training.
Brian, I want to thank you for that question because that's an amazing question. And you're right. We have to have routines. We have to have processes. I call them tools. The more tools we have to help us with our awareness, the stronger we become. And but not only that, but the better caregivers we can be for other people, right? The the tool that I say would be the easiest for everyone to step into and would be is meditation. Some space or time that I take in my day where I sit quietly and I do my best to find my center. I do my best to quiet my crazy mind, and I do my best to start to pay attention to the energy that I am inside of me, right? And so if everybody wants to play, we'll play just for a few minutes, for a couple of minutes, right?
Absolutely, let's do that.
So in this moment, if you all everybody was to just close their eyes and just be quiet for a few seconds, right? And in that moment of quietness, then starting to do one thing only, right? Which is become aware of your breath. Become aware of your breath on the level of I feel my breath as it moves through my body. I feel the air as it enters into my lungs. I feel the expansion and the contraction as I inhale and I exhale. My complete focus is on this process of breath in this moment. I do my best to let go of my day. I do my best to let go of the uh, whatever my mind is wanting me to do in this moment. And every time that happens, I see it without judgment, and I come back and I say, let me come back to focusing on my breath. My breath becomes a physical experience because I'm putting that attention to it. So I actually feel the air as it moves through me. I actually feel my body as it reacts to my breath. As that happens, I start to move more and more away from my crazy mind, or the mind that wants to keep me in this busy place. And I come more and more into a quiet center. And as I do that, even if I do that for 20 or 30 seconds or for a minute, there's almost always going to be a shift. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes you'll feel it and it will be more profound. But the more I continue to focus on this breath, the more relaxed and calm I become, and I give my body permission to be. Do you feel the difference?
Absolutely, that's such a powerful experience, and it's so accessible, right?
It's so
For,
accessible.
yeah, for me, I have experience with some diaphragm breathing, and so it's relatively straightforward for me to kind of go into my diaphragm, and then of course the challenge is to not exercise the breath so much as just watch it, right?
To
But
watch it.
yeah,
We allow the breath to find its own rhythm, and then we become the witness and the experience of the breath as it moves in and out of us, right? And what I say to people is that most people don't won't even give that to themselves. When I work with the people that I work with, I say 5 minutes. You are worth 5 minutes of your time every day at the very minimum, right? So can I take 5 minutes for myself and start to create this process of letting go of my outside world and becoming aware of what's going on inside of me? And that daily practice, and there's other things that I do inside of that, because then it automatically in some ways leads me to this place of gratitude, because I go, wow, here I am inside my body, I'm still alive, here I am in my day. what are the amazing things that I see in my life? And can I find one or two or three things? For me in the morning, sometimes it's as simple as, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I woke up in a bed and I have a roof over my head. I'm so grateful that I have my cat comes and taps me on the shoulder and says, time to eat. But there are little things like that, right? And as I go through that and I create that gratitude for that, and it brings me into a different place because I will see the world differently because then my intention comes. Can I walk through my day recognizing the special, beautiful things that are happening around me? Can I recognize that there are miracles in my life when I start to pay attention to them? And I create an intention for that. Nobody intends to get up every morning and hit every red light on the way to work or to get behind that guy that flips you off because you almost hit them because they slammed on their brakes, right?
Right.
So I sometimes I do that, let my day go so smoothly that I hit every green light on the way to work. That everything that I need to get done gets done in the space and the time that I have. And know that whatever I don't get done, that I don't have to do anything except recognize that because for the most part, it's not going to go away. I'll have the opportunity to work on it again, right?
Right. Right.
And,
Absolutely.
and so what I'm literally doing is I'm creating spaces in my day where I consciously break the fight or flight and that stress that everything around me wants to keep me in.
That is so powerful. I'm seeing a picture come together of this what looks to me like a fairly simple and a highly effective framework. Right? It's almost as if you can just start by watching, as you called it, meditating on the breath
Mhm.
and allowing the mind's accumulated stresses, positive or negative, just to simply release because you're not focused on that. You're now moving into the breath and
Mhm.
watching and focusing in on the breath. And then allowing this question of gratitude and creating space to allow those thoughts of gratitude of what you're grateful for, the things that assure us that we really do have a place in the world.
Yeah.
All of those elements, whether it's the cat or the dog or just having a car or like you said, the roof or the crepe that I ate on my way back here, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? And then to allow that gratitude to be the foundation of your intention. So important.
It is so important because when I create that because what we're doing is we're creating new patterns and we're creating new behaviors. As that behavior becomes embedded, then instead of thinking that it's going to happen, I actually start to expect these things and I actually start to watch for them as I go through my day. And so then my day becomes this series of seeing miracles and amazing things instead of seeing resistance and fear and anger and all the other things that we're already accustomed to and we are already have stories attached to. So in a lot of ways, what we're doing is we're creating a different way of looking at our lives.
Absolutely. And seeing the evidence of
And
how the world responds back to us. That's
well,
so important.
and it's funny that you say that because I do that at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, I do the same thing. Before I'm going to bed, or even as I'm in the shower, or because I shower before I go to bed. But I say, let me let go of the day. Let me let go of my day. Let me let go of everything that's happened to me today. Let me go to sleep literally by myself, without all the people, right? And then as I'm laying there, I go back into my breath again, and I follow my breath, and I allow it to help me to relax and to calm down, and then I go, wow, what are the amazing things that happened to me today? And I start to look for them, and I start to. It's almost like a review of all those amazing things, and people may not believe me, but this is really what happens. The team, I call them the team, they're up there and they're going, wow. James is paying attention to all these miracles that we're putting in his life. Let's give him some more. And so it becomes this place of watching for the miracles and then acknowledging the miracles as they happen or acknowledging the beautiful things in my life. Right?
100%. I totally get that, right? That
Yeah.
yeah, when you are when you receive those, if you will, those downloads or those shifts or adjustments that are being provided to you, and you have the presence of being, I wouldn't say mind, but the presence of being to accept them and
Yeah.
provide and communicate the gratitude back for having received those things, then yeah, that's naturally going to encourage more receiving, more giving.
It's it's not conceptual at that point because I'm actually experiencing it. So my mind is not in control. I'm actually feeling and experiencing the shifts and the changes inside of my body. And it again, I say that it's not conceptual, it's actually experiential because I'm
Yes.
experiencing the gratitude, not thinking about the gratitude.
Right. Yeah, it's way beyond the mind. It's so much more powerful than just the thought of, well, I'm going to write down in my journal. Now, that's important too, right? But I'm going to write down in my journal what I'm grateful for. That's the start. But what you're talking about is several steps ahead of that. That's so huge.
I'm writing down what the things that I'm grateful for in my journal, but I'm also giving myself the time to feel what that felt like as it was
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And then that communicates that back out to as you put your support system, right? That's been providing you this stuff all this time.
Exactly, because then when I turn around, I'm going to approach my day that way, and I'm going to approach everybody that I come in contact with. So it's going to be from this place of like awe and joy, or splendor, or from a different place than this trudging that we most of us experience as we go through the days. Oh my God, here I got to do this, and then I have to do this, and oh no, I'm going to be late for this appointment. Then, oh my God, there's so many more things to do, and to stop living my life that way.
Right. And to start living from a place of intention, from a place of gratitude, from a place of receiving. And I had a final question for tonight, but you've already answered it. That's how you get the strength to give, right? And give and care, right? For and fulfill the mission of the caregiver.
Yeah, because now I'm in a place where I have more to give because I'm actually taking care of myself and I'm allowing myself to feel that on a personal level in my life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And making yourself available to receive the energy. And then when you have it in abundance, then you have more than enough to give.
More
That's
than
such a great place that you've, James, in just 30 minutes or so, well, a little bit more, that you brought us to, and so clearly. So I really appreciate you sharing all this. Of course, I know there's a lot more to this than what we can cover in a short segment here. So I did want to include your email address for folks to reach out to you and to learn more, because there is a lot more to learn here. And I
right.
think that you have some. I don't. Maybe if you want to just describe how you work with individuals who do reach out to you. But let me first call out your email address for the audio.
Okay.
It's jameskwai@gmail.com, and let me spell that. It's JamesKwaiNui at James, what might you offer if you could just give us a quick overview of how you work with individuals who do reach out?
Well, to people that reach out and if they're struggling or there's something there that is an issue in their life and they're looking for perspective or guidance on, when you reach out to me, what I offer to people is a free 30-minute session. And so by reaching out and scheduling that session, then we will sit down together. And if I can help you move through whatever it is and give you something to walk away with, because for me, everything that I do is about teaching people to be empowered inside of themselves. So I'm all about tools. The more tools I give to people, I tell people when they come to see me, I don't want permanent clients. I want you to get strong inside yourself and be able to see the things that are happening in your life and know how to make the correct choices. So when people come to work with me, that's the place that I start from.
It's such an empowering, how would you say, empowering positioning, right? That you essentially become a resource for them.
Yeah,
They receive the tools that you provide, and as they work with you, then they're able to move forward in their own lives and accomplish so much more, because of having those foundational attributes and systems and tools. That's great. Really appreciate that, James, and I love the work you do. I hope that we can stay in touch over the coming months and years. And I personally would love to learn more about what you do as well.
I love that. And I just want to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity today to have this conversation with you and to share, Hawaiians call it my manao, my wisdom with you. And so it's always a pleasure and I'm always grateful when I get to interact with other people. So thank you.
Thank you so much, James. Really appreciate all the wisdom that you shared with us, and most particularly how clear that it became as we explored the avenue of caregiving and the way for the caregiver to become truly empowered to
Yes,
not only execute what it is that's their mission, but to really to enjoy it, right?
exactly.
Enjoy the journey. So huge. Thanks again, James. And for the Center of Calmness, I'm DK Warner.